Chapter 2. Mood pitfalls to watch out for. The problem with instant relief. Low mood gives us the urge to do things that can make our mood even worse. When we feel discomfort and the threat of low mood, we want to get back to feeling lighter. Our brain already knows from experience what tends to help the quickest, so we feel urges to do whatever will make it all go away as soon as possible. We numb or distract ourselves and push the feelings away. For some, that is via alcohol, drugs, or food. For others, it is watching hours of TV or scrolling through social media. Each of those things are so inviting because they work in the short term. They give us that instant distraction and numbing that we crave. That is, until we switch off the TV, close down the app or sober up, and then the feelings come back. Each time we go round that cycle, the feelings come back even more intense. Low mood sadness, alcohol, instant relief, sober up. Numbing with TV plus social media, instant relief, switch off. Figure 3. The Vicious Cycle of Instant Relief, adapted from the work of Isabel Clarke, 2017. Finding ways to manage low mood involves reflecting on the ways in which we respond to those feelings, having compassion for our human need for relief, while also being honest with ourselves about which of those attempts to cope are making things worse in the longer term. Often, the things that work best in the long term are not fast acting. Try this. Use these questions as journal prompts to help you reflect on your current coping strategies for low mood. When feeling low, what are your go-to responses? Do those responses provide instant relief from the pain and discomfort? What effects do they have in the longer term? What do they cost you? Not in money, but in time, effort, health, and progress. Thought patterns that make you feel worse. As we discussed in the previous chapter, the relationship between thoughts and feelings goes both ways. The thoughts we spend time with affect how we feel, but how we feel also has an effect on the thought patterns that come up. Listed below are some of the thought biases that we commonly experience when mood is low. They might sound familiar, and that's because thought biases are normal. They happen to everyone to varying degrees. But they are more likely to happen when we experience fluctuations in mood and emotional states. Understanding what they are and starting to notice them when they appear is a big step towards taking some of the power out of them. Mind reading. Having a grasp on what the people around us are thinking and feeling is crucial for humans. We live in groups and depend on each other, so we all spend much of our lives making guesses about what other people are thinking and feeling. But when we're feeling down, we are more likely to assume that those guesses are true. When my friend looked at me funny, I just knew she hated me. But on a different way, when I'm not struggling with low mood, I might be more inclined to be a bit more curious about what was going on and possibly even ask her. You might notice that you feel the need for more reassurance from others when your mood is low. If you don't get that extra reassurance, you might automatically assume that they are thinking negatively about you. But that is a bias, and it is quite possible that you are your worst critic. Overgeneralization. When we are struggling with low mood, it only takes one thing to go wrong, and we have that tendency to write off the whole day. You spill some milk in the morning, it goes everywhere. You feel stressed and frustrated as you don't want to be late. Overgeneralization is when we see this one event as a sign that today will be one of those days. Nothing is going your way. It never does. You start asking the universe to give you a break because it sure as hell feels like it's against you today. When this happens, we start to expect more things to go wrong, and it's a slippery slope towards hopelessness. Overgeneralizing thoughts particularly like to show up along with the pain of a breakup. One relationship ends, and our thoughts start to suggest that this means we will never make a relationship work and could never be happy with anyone else. It is natural to have these thoughts, but left unchecked, they will contribute to more pain and low mood. Egocentric thinking. When times are hard and you're not feeling at your best, this tends to narrow our focus. It becomes more difficult to consider other people's opinions and perspectives, or that they might hold different values. This bias can cause problems in our relationships because it can disrupt how connected we feel to others. For example, we set ourselves a rule for living, something like I must always be on time for everything. We then apply that rule to others and feel offended or hurt when they fall short of that. That might make us feel less tolerant of others, disrupt our mood even further, and add relationship tensions into the mix. This equates with trying to control the uncontrollable and inevitably sends our low mood spiraling down further. Emotional reasoning. Just as thoughts are not facts, feelings are not facts either. Emotions are information, but when that information is powerful, intense, and loud as emotions can be, then we are more vulnerable to believing in them as a true reflection of what is going on. I feel it, therefore, it must be a fact. Emotional reasoning is a thought bias that leads us to use what we feel as evidence for something to be true, even when there might be plenty of evidence to suggest otherwise. For example, you walk out of an exam feeling deflated, low in mood, and lacking in confidence. Emotional reasoning tells you this means you must have failed. You may have performed okay in the exam, but your brain takes information from how you feel, and you're not feeling like a winner right now. The low mood could have been created by the stress followed by exhaustion, but the feeling is influencing how you then interpret your situation. The mental filter. The thing about the human brain is that when you believe something, the brain will scan the environment for any signs that the belief is true. Information that challenges our beliefs about ourselves and the world is psychologically threatening. Things suddenly become unpredictable, and that doesn't feel safe. So the brain tends to discount it and hold on to whatever fits with previous experience. Even if that belief causes distress, so during hard times when you may be feeling low and believe that you are a failure, your mind will act like a sieve, letting go of all the information that suggests otherwise, and holding on to any indication that you have not lived up to expectation. Let's say you post a picture on social media and plenty of your followers leave positive comments, but you are not looking for those. You skim past them, searching for any negative ones. If you find any, you might then spend a significant portion of your day thinking it over, feeling hurt and doubting yourself. In evolutionary terms, it makes sense that when you feel vulnerable, you keep an extra lookout for signs of threat. But when you are trying to come back from a dark place, the mental filter is something to be aware of. Musts and shoulds. Beware of those musts and shoulds. I don't mean the healthy and normal sense of duty we have to our community. I mean the relentless expectations that send us on a downward spiral of unhappiness. I must be more this, and I should feel that. The musts and shoulds are heavily tied up with perfectionism For example, if you feel you must never fail, you are setting yourself up for a roller coaster of emotions and a struggle with mood when you make a mistake or encounter a setback. We can strive for success and accept failures along the way. But when we set ourselves unrealistic expectations, we become trapped by them. That means we suffer whenever there is any sign that we may not be living up to them. So watch out for those musts and shoulds. When you are already struggling with mood, accepting yourself to do, be, and have everything that you are when you are at your best is not realistic or helpful. All or nothing thinking, also known as black and white thinking. This is another thought bias that can make mood worse if we leave it unchecked. This is when we think in absolutes or extremes. I'm either a success or a complete failure. If I don't look perfect, I'm ugly. If I make a mistake, I should never have bothered. This polarized thinking style leaves no room for the gray areas that are often closer to reality. The reason this pattern of thought makes everything harder is because it makes us vulnerable to more intense emotional reactions. If failing one exam means you are a failure as a person, then the emotional fallout from that will be more extreme and much harder to pull back from. When you feel low in mood, you're more likely to think in this polarized way. But it's important to remember that this is not because your brain is getting things wrong or malfunctioning in any way. When we are under stress, all or nothing thinking creates a sense of certainty or predictability about the world. What we then miss is the chance to think things through more logically, weighing up the different sides of the argument and coming to a more informed judgment. Figure 4. Table of thought bias examples. Thought bias. Mind reading. What is it? Making assumptions about what others are thinking and feeling. Example: she hasn't called in a while because she hates me. Overgeneralizing. Taking one event and using it to generalize about other things. I failed my exam. My future is ruined. I failed my exam. My future is ruined. Ecocentric thinking, assuming that others have the same perspective and values as we have and judging their behavior through that lens. I would never be late like that. He obviously doesn't care enough about me. Emotional reasoning. I feel it, therefore it must be true. I feel guilty, therefore I'm a bad parent. Musts and shoulds. Relentless and unrealistic expectations that set us up to feel like a failure every day. I must always look perfect. I should never do any less than my absolute best. All or nothing thinking. Thinking in absolutes or extremes. If I don't get 100%, I'm a failure. If I don't look perfect, I'm not going out. What to do with thought biases? Now you know some of the common thought biases that can make your mood worse. What next? We can't stop those thoughts from arriving, but the power is all in seeing them for what they are, biased, and then managing how we respond to them. If we can acknowledge that each of our thoughts presents just one possible idea among many, then we open ourselves up to the possibility of considering others. This means the original thought has less power over our emotional state. To be sure we respond to them in the way we want to, first we need to notice the biases when they appear. If we don't step back and see them as a bias, we buy into them as if they present a fair reflection of reality. Then they can feed that low mood and exert their influence over what we do next. Noticing thought biases sounds obvious, and it is simple, but it's not always easy. When we're in the moment, we don't only experience a thought that we can see clearly. We experience the mess of emotions, physical sensations, images, memories, and urges all at once. We are so used to doing everything on autopilot that stopping to check out the details of the process can take a lot of practice. Here are some ways you can start to spot thoughts, biases, and the impacts they have on you. Getting started. High emotion states can make it hard to think clearly, so it can be easier to start by reflecting on thought biases after the emotions on the moment have passed. You build your awareness by looking back, but that gradually builds toward awareness in real time. Start keeping a journal and choose specific moments to focus on, both positive and negative. Make a distinction between what you were thinking at the time, what emotions you noticed, and what physical sensations came with that. Once you have the thoughts written down, go over the list of biases and see if your thoughts might have been biased at the time. If you are in the moment and have the chance to write something down, put pen to paper and express your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations. But as you do that, try to use language that helps you get some distance from those thoughts and feelings. For example, I'm having thoughts that, or I'm noticing the sensations. This use of language helps you to step back from the thoughts and feelings, to see them as an experience that is washing over you, rather than absolute truth. If you have someone you trust and confide in, you can share with them the thought biases that you are prone to, and they can help you to spot them and call them out. But this requires a very good relationship with someone who is accepting and respectful and supports you in your choice to work on change and growth. It is not easy to be called out in the moment, so this one takes some careful planning to make sure it works for you. Starting a mindfulness practice is the way forward when you want to get a bird's eye view of what your thoughts are doing. Having a set time of the day when you pay attention to your thoughts is a great idea. It's your formal practice to build that ability to step back from your thoughts and observe them without judgment. A few pointers. As we are building awareness of our thoughts, we need to work hard to see that pattern of thoughts as just one possible interpretation of the word and allow ourselves to consider alternatives. Spotting these common thought biases and labeling them helps us to do that. This is not something we do just once. It takes continued effort and practice. Sometimes you may not spot a thought as biased. At other times, you will be able to spot them and come back at them with a more helpful alternative. In trying to find alternatives, some people try to look for the correct answer. It's not so much the exact wording of the alternative perspective that is important. What matters more is a practice of stopping before you buy into a thought as fact and actively considering other views. As a general rule, it helps to look for a perspective that feels more balanced, fair, and compassionate, and that takes into account all the information available. Emotions tend to drive more extreme and biased views, but life is often more complex and full of gray areas. It's okay not to have a clear opinion on something while you take time to think about different sides of the story. So give yourself permission to sit on the fence for as long as you need to. Build up that ability to tolerate not knowing. When we do that, we are choosing to stop living life by the first thoughts that pop into our head. Our choices become more consciously thought out. Let's say I spill the milk all over the floor at breakfast and immediately start asking myself, why am I such a failure in life and why nothing ever goes right for me? That's a nice mix of generalization and all or nothing thinking right there. If I can spot that bias and call it out, I can open up this window of opportunity in which I can reduce the intensity of that emotional response that might otherwise follow. It is never fun to spill milk, but our relationship with our thoughts can make the difference between a few minutes of frustration and something that ruins your mood for the entire day. Like everything in this book, it's very easy to say, but much harder to do. It takes practice and it doesn't make us invincible, but it helps and it stops small moments turning into big ones. Chapter summary. Thought bias is inevitable, but we are not helpless to its effects. We naturally look for evidence that confirms our beliefs. We then experience what we believe, even when there is evidence to suggest otherwise. Whatever has caused our low mood, it tends to come along with a focus on threats and loss. Gilbert, 1997. This bias towards the negative can then feed back to intensify the low mood if we continue to focus on and believe those thoughts to be facts. One strategy against the downward spiral this can cause is understanding that how we feel is not evidence that our thoughts are true. Another strategy is taking a stance of curiosity. Get some distance from those thoughts by becoming familiar with the common biases, noticing when they appear and labeling them as biases, not facts.